And just like that, we are back with chapter 46 of the universe according to Muggsy. I am Muggsy, the creator. And boy, we are just checking back in on the current events, culture, and consciousness because this entire world is falling apart. Oh, what day is it? Today is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. And who is the President of the United States of America? Dan Bongino. That is not where we are going to start things today. We are not going to start things there, but that is definitely where we're going to end up. There's just nothing we can do. It is that time of year. It is that time in the political cycle. It is that time in the theater cycle. It is that time in the power struggle. It must manifest itself. And we are just here to watch. But like I said, that's not where we're starting because today was an interesting morning. There are so few days where I forget that just everywhere that I go, I am breaking down barriers and doing things that seemingly no one around them thought was possible. And it just doesn't get any better than sitting on my front porch, smoking marijuana that was prescribed to me by a doctor, I don't know, years ago at this stage of the game, in a state that legalized marijuana close to a decade ago. And there's just people in the neighborhood have come up to me now and thanked me for smoking weed on the front porch, which is an absolutely insane thing to say in a state that has had marijuana legal for almost a decade, but clearly legalization has nothing to do with stigmatization, which is what the barriers that I am breaking through, even decades after this legalization process, seemingly without my knowledge. Oh, it is so funny. And what a good thing. It is a great thing. I think people are now... What was that? I think people are now starting to observe different patterns that have allowed to... that have been allowed to manifest themselves because of legality. And now people are observing these new patterns and everything that comes with it, and it is perhaps much different than the things that they have been told in the past, right? There are a lot of people who have had no experience with people who smoke marijuana on a day-to-day basis. There are many people who have had no experience with people who drink tea on a day-to-day basis. There are many people who have had no experience with people who are grateful for everything they have on a day-to-day basis because our society is off the rails. So seemingly you have to thank somebody for reminding you that, oh yeah, that's right. We can just do the things that make us feel good without fear or anxiety of the repercussions of stigmatization, because stigmatization is in and of itself a perception of our own mind that doesn't matter at all to the quantum world, because this is the consciousness part of the podcast. Oh my God, how does he do it? How does he do it? It was just so crazy. I love it. I mean, God forbid this guy ever sees this interview. I am so happy to be the one to be able to do that for this neighborhood. I've been getting up in the morning and smoking while I am stretching. Normally, I do that in the backyard. I like to ground while I do it. But I have been tearing up the backyard as we are reseeding. So I don't want to sit in all the grass while we're reseeding. So I have moved my stretching marijuana gratitude regimen to the front porch. with my morning tea, and that has thrown these new people that are getting up every morning, going to school and work and on their fall schedule into a little bit of a, oh, wow, wait a minute. So I am very grateful to be the one illuminating their minds and opening it to the possibilities that are available to all of us above the age of 21 in the great state of Massachusetts, especially those that have been prescribed it by a medical doctor. All things that are legal in this state. And I hope that people start to recognize, oh, I thought marijuana was this one thing where people are using it to get high, and I'm not saying that you can't do that too. It's also a great way to enjoy it. But most people just are unaware that it can be an aid, certainly, to stretching, workouts, jiu-jitsu. Most people don't know that. Most people don't know that the art of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations may be aided by a natural substance that comes from the ground that helps you relax and put yourself in even more uncomfortable situations so that later your body will repair itself in a much better form and fashion. It is all mind over matter, mind, body, spirit alignment, and most people don't know about any of these things that I'm crisscrossing right on the front porch every morning. So for even one person in the neighborhood to walk by and notice even one thing that I'm doing that seems to be a pattern that is out of place with everything else that's going on, that's a great day. That is a great start to the morning. Oh, it's great to be continually reminded, oh yeah, that's right. I am the only one out here doing it. I look so different to everybody else in the world when I seemingly have the things that they are looking for. Yet no one's willing to admit that to themselves. But hey, that's what I'm here for. That's what the universe, according to Muggsy, is for. This is just my take on the world, and anybody that illuminates, I mean, that's just an added bonus, I guess, because I'm doing this shit anyways, because there is no one watching this broadcast. You can be damn sure of it, except for you, Scott. I'm looking at you and the nurse next door, maybe the kidney cowboy. That's about it, guys. But it's awesome to be in that moment, knowing exactly what we're talking about, knowing that these things will be uncovered at some future moment in time that we are tied to right now in this quantum moment, this exact second in space-time. Everyone is watching. They just haven't recognized it yet. So what are we here to talk about? Oh, there's been so much going on. I started my first controversy on the internet on September 11th. I started a chain of people going back and forth. And that was awesome because there is a lot of financial crimes that have yet to be uncovered. And when September 11th is examined under the microscope of a financial crime, I think it reveals that there's a lot more going on in this universe than is clear to our eyes, which are really just lying to us. We're going to talk about that in a lot of ways today. But it felt good to actually, in some small, tiny way, shape, or form, in the replies on a Barstool Sports comment, I started a discussion between someone who is seemingly a very, very well-intentioned civil engineer with some 20 years, 2 decades of civil engineering experience, who was very quick to try to correct my perception of what happened in Building 7 on September 11, 2001. Apparently, I must not understand anything in the physical realm of 3D space-time, which we have broken down with E equals MC squared, and how we can understand that really the only time is now. We've broken down the matrix and its division into space-time and its each respective Holy Trinity, the Holy Trinity of space being length, width, and height, the Holy Trinity of time being past, present, and future. But yes, sir, your 2 decades of civil engineering experience has led you to the conclusion that Building 7, although it was several blocks away from the two twin towers that fell on September 11th, because seemingly they were hit with airplanes, that debris from that collision, explosion, demolition, some would say, somehow made its way to Building 7 blocks away and caused Building 7 to fall at free fall speeds, although it was not hit by any aircraft. I don't know much about civil engineering, my friend. I do know a lot about financial crimes. I've been watching them for 2 decades of my own now. 2004, when I started my journey down the economic route of watching all of business and how it was done. Value, time, money, value, starting with baseball cards and leading me down the Wall Street route until eventually I had to understand all of reality if I wanted to predict any economic future. So I don't know much about civil engineering, my brother. But that conversation, I'm so delighted to say, ended with us agreeing to disagree. I did not enlighten my new friend, Mets fan something or other, to my background and how I reached the conclusions that I did on some of the curiosity that still I have over the events that went on the morning, days before, and days after September 11th, 2001, and the catastrophic changes it had over our everyday lives until even this moment right here today in 2024. So in the quantum world, there were some things that went on those days that are very relevant. So I am happy to say that while we agree to disagree, that was a positive interaction on the internet that many people are quick to say Twitter is this cesspool of hate. And every time I engage someone who reveals themselves to be an actual human and not one of these robots, I am surprised at how positive the engagement is. Almost every time, even when back years ago, literally years ago at this point, when I was trying to get someone at Barstool to recognize that Saturday Night Live would be a good opportunity for them to explore, I was writing scripts for Saturday Night Live, posting them to a blog, and eventually I got one guy who hated me to read one of them, apologize, and tell me that he loved me. And this was back in 2021, 2022, when there was much more control over the institutions, and Elon had yet to tear down with the Twitter files all of the military-industrial infrastructure that was implanted in this technological application that we believed was just a communication device. It was just so... Whenever I have interactions with humans, I'm continually surprised at the level of empathy and open-mindedness that it only takes a little bit of actual listening to get to. So people just want to be heard, you know? And when you have new information that you're coming to them with without judgment, which is really, I think, what I've learned how to do on this podcast is reach people where they're at, not from this place of judgment, saying, okay, buddy, I respect the fact that you're a civil engineer. I respect the fact that you've got 2 decades of knowledge. Tell me what you know. And from your opinion, you think I should watch this video. Okay, I'll take a look at it, but in my opinion, I think you should watch this video. And I think maybe eventually we're all going to start seeing reality as it exists and less of the image that our eyes are telling us and more of the truths that we can just feel to be true deep within our fucking resonance. Now, what has gone on this week? Even right now, I'm having to learn how to become a producer because I now need to grow in new ways to bring this podcast up to the level that it deserves to be at because of the content that we are discussing. I guess the first 45 episodes took me on this crazy course of not only self-discovery, but self-realization of the things that I had been doing the entire time, the conversations that had been continually muffled by the culture and institutions that I had included myself in, and only by removing myself and killing the person that existed inside those institutions could the new person reveal himself, and that seems to be the person that was there all along. So initially, we didn't even start with a camera because there was so much resistance. That resistance was the suffering, electromagnetic suffering that we discovered along the route. Somewhere along the way, we realized, oh, wait a minute, we should turn on a camera and start documenting some of this because we have already been correct about so much. And the journey to consciousness was really the most revelatory in this path because there's so much that I am still learning and opening my own perceptions up to that still will reveal itself as the podcast continues. While at the same time, that aspect, the consciousness aspect that we are continually pulling back the layers on, is one that I've already had to pull back the layers on through the current events that led me to the culture, which is why we're at the consciousness aspect now, which is the aspect that can be shared so universally, which we all currently have access to. That's how this whole three-man weave process has kind of come to fruition over the course of this podcast. And now 45 episodes in, 46 episodes in, we're trying new recording options as a producer, which I have also been resisting. Why have I been resisting being a producer? Because I didn't really know exactly the journey that I had to take. It's because I wasn't ready to produce the content yet. I didn't know how to efficiently use my time. Now trying this Riverside app, testing that a little bit. We'll see if the video comes out a little bit better. Then maybe we can start screwing with the audio on the DaVinci platform. What is that called? DaVinci Resolve, which is the video editing software that you can make a full-length feature film, studio film on. I'm obviously not using all of those features, but what the hell? We're at the stage now where it's important we start understanding these things, and especially as AI comes in and starts to try and integrate all of these processes for us, because it is smarter than us. It thinks that it knows how we want to be heard, how we want to be broadcast. We are realizing that we are the AI, and it is important we control our own message, our own inputs. So it is important that I understand the background of this podcast, because eventually I'm not going to be able to do it on my own, right? That is so obvious, despite how much I would love to do it on my own. I have asked seemingly everyone I could think of along my journey for help. And my guess is when I need that help will arrive. And all the people that I have been seemingly trying to bump my heads into during the first 30 episodes of this podcast, those enemies that I chose, as Patrick Bet-David would put it, will reveal themselves to be the friends that I was looking for all along, looking to help me in just the way that I needed at just the moment that I needed it. That is quantum physics. That is quantum mechanics. That is the theory that we are testing in real life with my life, so that you can all witness it, observe it, and do it for yourself. That is why I wanted to pull the strings from behind the scenes. I can do this with anyone. I could have done it with any one of you. But nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to pay attention. So my guess is eventually they will all listen and they will all pay attention more than they had ever thought or intended. It's funny, the polarity in this world, and there was so much magnetism against me for so long. I was the cancer. I was the enemy. I was what society was fighting. I was what society was looking to suppress. I don't know exactly why that was the journey that we all had to go on, but we all went on that journey for better or worse. All we can do is be thankful for the journey that we've already been on, and see what we can learn from it, see what we can sift through on what we remember and what's been revealed to us now that we are looking at it through a different light, through the lens and context of space and time. As we have moved through this world, as the poles on this planet Earth are even now starting to shift, so too is our perception of reality. Oh my God, of course. Now we're going to need a new camera for this podcast, because you are going to have to start seeing me as what I really am. What it will be revealed to me, to be, to me. I don't even know, guys. What is this? What have we started here? What did we begin? What do we got to talk about today? Oh, my childhood. It seems like we are going to go down my own memory lane. The things that helped formulate a lot of the experiences that many of you will have in common with me, because it was thrust upon us by a culture we thought we were creating. No. It never had anything to do with us. The only participation that we had was choosing ourselves of our free will to spend our time and energy following people like the P. Did It. I don't know what other names we can give this guy. P. Diddler, P. Did It, PIA, PBI. P. Diddy is now facing the consequences of the fact that our society is now changing and clashing and being revealed to us in ways that we never could have perceived it years ago. Never in my childhood did I honestly believe that the white parties and the freak parties were all FBI, CIA, NSA, Mossad, international honeypot rings for people to collect blackmail so that they could exploit members, high-ranking members of our society, and control culture and the image of what all of us believe to be true with our eyes, with our own perception of the things that we believe that we enjoy. Oh, if you are a rap fan, how could you not just be destroyed by the fact that all of rap and hip-hop is seemingly this architecture of this image, self-image of wealth and status that is created by a group of people that has been exploited already. How do we not tie all of this back? He had 1,000 bottles of lube. And I don't care what your job is. I don't care if it's your job to be producing exclusively male-on-male pornographic content. And that's what you do 365 days a year. If you have 1,000 bottles of lube in your storage facility, that is explicitly too much lube for even that job. So if you have 1,000 bottles, what could you possibly have the need for? I don't care if it's your job to fill up bathtubs, small bathtubs for men to have sexual intercourse with in 1,000, and you do that every day all year long. That is too many bottles. That's too many bottles. What was going on? Honestly, even in my wildest imagination, I cannot fathom the amount of things that you must need to, when you're just getting your grocery list together, be like, okay, check, 1,000 bottles of lubrication. I don't even know. Where do you order that much from? That's industrial deliveries. There's so many red flags that should be going off on so many levels. The lubrication manufacturer delivery guy should be setting off red flags on his route so that his company knows, hey, this guy here on South Beach has so much lube. He could rape his way to China. Okay? He could not, I don't know. You get it. You get it. We have so many failures on a societal level that we have failed so many times when this is going on. And not only is it going on, it is being conducted on high. Because now we have to take this fact that we have 1,000 bottles of lubrication in P. Diddy's house, and we have to extrapolate now because we all live in a fucking society, and that's what we have to do here. We have to extrapolate. Now, because none of these red flags went off, which is impossible, right? These red flags went off. Somebody told somebody. People knew. Of course people knew. And if people knew, that means it was allowed to go on. Now, how could this be allowed? That means it was encouraged. And if it was encouraged, that means it was because it aligned with people's incentives. That is the thing, the ultimate thing that my buddy Z-Babs revealed to me. The only thing that people do are things that they are incentivized to do. So there was a lot of incentive for P. Diddy to have 1,000 bottles of lube in his house, in one of his houses. When now as we just give it a little time to breathe, and we now see, holy crap, this guy here was once a cultural icon. He was doing interviews with Barack Obama in 2004 when he was a senator. How is P. Diddy, a hip-hop rap star who once had to change his name because he got off on murder? That's another thing. Oh, wow, he got off on murder. Isn't that interesting how he was able to get off on that charge and change his name from Puff Daddy to P. Diddy? And then all is forgotten. Oh, all of these people are narcs. All of these whitey bulgers. If P. Diddy's in the game, who did P. Diddy work with? Who did P. Diddy work for? Ultimately, who he worked for is not the record labels. It's somebody who answers to a much higher boss than that. When you are inviting the cream of the crop culturally to your parties, people as young as Justin Bieber at 13 and 14, Usher, and they are staying with you for multiple days. You are adopting them. You're releasing videos about your freak parties, talking about how wild and crazy it gets. And now we know you have thousands of bottles of lube in your house. Oh, I think we know what kind of freak parties were happening. I think I'm very thankful that I was never culturally relevant enough to ever have been invited to those parties at a time when I thought that might have been a step that would have been a positive influence in my life. Oh, man. Because I love hip-hop and rap. In many ways, it was a part of who I was. The person that have been killed for this person to have manifested, right? I had to rid myself of all of the previous patterns that I personally chose with my time and energy to associate myself and my ego, my personality with, as if they were a part of me, but hip-hop is not a part of me. I may have identified with it in certain ways, sure. In the 90s, how could none of us, how could we not have identified with Tupac and Biggie? They were talking about this struggle that was seemingly pervasive among the youth. And as a student of that time and that culture, of course, I have come to find the videos of Tupac, seemingly a gay actor. A seeming gay actor who was playing a role as a rapper. Someone who was perhaps so manipulated from such a young age that this person couldn't even know who they really were and what they were really fighting for. And their ethical lines just became grayer and grayer until eventually Tupac and Biggie were no more. Perhaps they took a moral and ethical stand and chose not to do something that others among them were. Because in the power vacuum that was created by the death of Tupac and Biggie, I remember there were people that stood on stages and settled beef. Puff Daddy was one of those people. He seemingly helped quash the violence that was going on at a time of East Coast and West Coast, when our culture, it now seems, was being hijacked from us. Way back when we thought we were the rebels and the anti-establishment for following this well-orchestrated version of history that was only available to be perceived by people that could see it in a certain light. Most of the people who were able to see what was going on in a certain light were those who were being manipulated, were those who were being blackmailed. And that, in context of the way the next 30 years played out, it certainly seems to reveal that there are games going on that none of us could have seen coming at any moment in time. And we must appreciate whatever it was in ourselves that we identified with and seemingly separate the manipulation that came from forces that we don't understand their intentions. We don't understand exactly why at that moment in time there was a benefit to someone who would have some meaningful alignment in their own goals for where they saw the next 30 years playing out. Maybe the it doesn't have to be as malicious and dark and seemingly well orchestrated, perhaps, as I'm making it out to be. Perhaps these are little things that happen in each moment in time that compound and build over time, where none of us could have saw in one moment how this young gay man, Tupac Shakur, or his real name, right, who was trying to be well-intentioned and move the world in a way that he saw best fit. He could never have imagined that it would end up here with 30 years of P. Diddy's abuse, and we will probably never know the lengths and the depths to which that information honeypot was really in action. And perhaps that is for the best. And maybe it's all for some greater reason, to be revealed to us, the people now at this moment in time. Why? Why now? Because what else is going on? P. Diddy, did I cover it all? That's a great riff. Man, it's just crazy to have grown up in that time and age and have been young. It makes me empathize with the young people now and how I seemingly clearly see some ways in which they are being manipulated and manufacturing this consent for things that they, if they sat down and thought about it, knew would be self-destructive on their own path in the future. And I can only imagine there were people older than me that were trying to teach me the same lessons when I was a young man making the decisions to listen to the music that I wanted to listen to at that time. And maybe the manipulation isn't in music nowadays. Maybe they've found a new clever way to manipulate people, like algorithms. I am trying to hit you guys over the head with it. But what do I know? I'm just a nobody talking to literally nobody in my parents' garage. All right? It just crushes me that it was all this construct. And it doesn't really matter, right? Because seeing P. Diddy in this construct, in this light, in this new perception, how does it make you feel about the Beatles? How does it make you feel about a lot of these people who were one-hit wonders, right? It completely changes the way you look at a one-hit wonder, somebody who had this amazing, brilliant song that they captured and somehow got it out to the masses. And then as the studios and the record companies came in to exert their influence over these strong, independent artists, they refused to give in. Maybe some of them fought and they continued independently for a significant amount of time. But maybe some of them said, you know what? I like my life exactly the way it is. I don't need any of this. I am happy with who I am. I'm happy to have made one song. And maybe they continue to make music. Maybe the best artists in this country all made music on their own independently. And that is this reawakening, rediscovery of America that we will only find out once we have closed the book on this idea that the music and culture that was sold to us over the past X amount of time may not be the best of what we have to offer. And that's where each one of us on our own journey have the potential to find the next most amazing one-hit wonder. And maybe they weren't a one-hit wonder. Maybe they are this unbelievably undiscovered diamond in the rough that could only be created through the pressure of living independently. Maybe that's exactly what this is. Maybe that's exactly what the last 34 years have been. Maybe that's what this attack on me has been. But I don't know. Who could predict that on September 19th, 2024? With no audience, no followers, no hope, seemingly. Who knows? Now, what really got me going this week is this recognition that our eyes deceive us. And if you just close your eyes, somehow reality feels so much more real when we close our eyes. It is only when we're open that we are distracted by this reality that is somehow less real than when we close our eyes. How is that possible? Now, I say this as an economist because this week, Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States of America decided, because the economy is doing so good, that we are going to cut interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. And I want to discuss that, and I want to talk about what that actually means, the mechanics behind what is actually going on in this economy. Because it is not as complicated as you might think. And it's important you understand so that you can make the best financial decisions for yourself in times of stagflation and hyperinflation, which it only seems that the White House, Treasury, and our Federal Reserve Bank and Congress is driving our economy towards. I've just been racking my brain, trying to figure it out. And it only makes sense in the context of a crime that is being committed currently in an all-out war and assault on the American people. Because that is what inflation is. We do not have, and when I say we, I'm talking about the slave class. Some people call it the lower class. It may have been at one time been referred to as the middle class, but I'm talking about the bottom 90% of people, probably the bottom 95% of people. The difference there is some 8 to 10% of people that are in the slave class believe that they are not in the slave class. They think because they have some semblance of control over the small day-to-day activities in their lives, that they have some control over the larger structure. But what will be revealed to them over time is that unless they are exerting that top percentage of influence, they really have no control whatsoever. Now, this war that is being waged upon the slave class is a war waged on the currency, because the Federal Reserve Bank is attempting to prop up the economy. There are a few levers available to the Federal Reserve to try and control the economy. Now, if we think about banks, the Federal Reserve Bank being the largest bank that controls all of the private banks in the United States of America, and we think about the money as a river and these banks as controlling the flow of the river in the direction in which certain people at the top would like money to flow, seemingly for the betterment of the United States economy and all people in its system. The problem with that is when only a few people hold the levers of control, inevitably those levers get hijacked for the incentives that best align with the people in control of the levers. This has been revealed time and time again over antiquity. I would encourage you to go back and look at any of history in context, and you will find it. Now, how is this being manipulated today, these rivers and these banks and the flows of dollars? Raising the interest rates by the Federal Reserve causes private banks to raise the interest rates that they lend to private individuals. Now, because the government creates money out of nothing, they give it away to private banks more or less so that those private banks can make money off of everybody else. More or less. We've gone over this so many times that I'm going to talk about it from 35,000 feet And if you guys have questions, we can absolutely dig into them. I'm going to be doing plenty of live broadcasts over the coming weeks where we can certainly dive into the economics. We will definitely continue to do so as this situation continues to resolve itself of its own momentum, which is really the only way that a river can flow, right? It has its own momentum and energy, and the banks are trying to control it. Now, using the levers of control of raising or lowering the central reserves rate with which it charges the private banks. The central bank's idea is it makes money out of nothing. It lends to the private banks at a rate with which it will continue to fund itself and its operations. The private banks will make money to continue to provide liquidity to private businesses so that commerce can happen in this capitalistic environment. Now, it is only capitalistic to our eyes, which we just told us are not telling us the whole story because our eyes can't see what's happening all the way at the top of this river. Now, if the economy is doing so well, why is the American public hurting so goddamn everywhere? In every way, shape, and form, the American taxpayer is hurting, and they are quick to tell you so. In any way with which you measure the American economy and its output, we are failing. Our economic data has continued to reveal itself to be false and bullshit by our economic institutions that are lying to us and propping up this idea of an economy that is somehow successful because it relies off slave labor from third world countries. The American public doesn't believe that anymore. Now, there's nothing the banks can do but lie. Now, when the banks want to stimulate the economy, they lower the interest rate so that people will continue to borrow. The problem is that feeds inflation. So you don't want to cut interest rates. So when the economy is doing well and you want to pull back on private investment, you want to raise the interest rates, make it harder for people to spend their hard-earned savings on risky investments, starting businesses. When you want to stimulate the economy and you need private individuals to take their savings and start creating businesses so that innovation and creativity can come up with new ideas that help an economy actually develop, you cut the interest rate. The problem is we have an economy that Jerome Powell, the White House, and the Treasury Department are telling us is a great economy. And because of such, we need to cut the interest rates. The problem is Americans aren't living in that economy that they're telling us is so good. And because we know that this interest rate cut is only going to further fuel inflation. And inflation is already killing the American consumer. So when I say it's a war on the people, I mean that very literally. Because people now need to make wartime decisions on whether they heat their house this winter or whether they eat food this winter. These are the types of decisions countries will make when they are at war. Inflation is war. I don't know how more clearly I can spell it out for you. Last year, around the same time, we were having discussions about how the United States was mortgaging our entire future on our currency, and the fact that the United States petrodollar would be so hard to unentangle the entire world global economy on that we bet our entire economy on it by continually borrowing to finance an economy that doesn't make any money. 40 to 50% of our tax revenue props up our economy through government spending and state government spending. How can that be a successful economy if 40 to 50% of it is our own taxpayer dollars? If we cut back on our government size, we cut back on our economy. That is why borrowing money to support a government that has outgrown its ability to control the levers of this perceived capitalism, it's all a farce. It's all a farce. It's no different than P. Diddy. It's all bullshit. And we've been buying into this system for so long, we think that we can't unencumber ourselves from it. But what the world is currently showing us is that it can be done and it will be done. That's what the unification of these BRICS nations against the United States petrodollar is. It is an economic war that we are documenting in real time because I don't know any other economic journalist doing it. I didn't want to start this podcast. I had to. I was called to fucking do it because nobody else is explaining this shit as it's happening in real time. So now the United States last year mortgaged its entire fucking everything all in on the United States greenback that is fully enforced by one thing. What is that? The full weight of the United States military, the only category in which the United States leads the entire world, seemingly. Perhaps that sheds a little more light on the armed conflicts that the United States has been entangling itself in. But the world, the world will not continue to play the game as the game has existed for the last 100 years. 100 and some change. This is nothing new. This is the same cycle of world reserve currencies that happens every 70 to 90 years, and we are right on target to be inside of that pattern and that framework until we decide to break that pattern. The only way we decide that pattern is collectively and not even just us here in the United States, but in the world. And what control do you have over that? You have no control over that. But what influence do you have over it? Every single decision that you make. That is why I do my best to not buy things on Amazon. I am so conscious about the way that I spend what little shekels that I have collected, running around as a servant, waiter, in a vacation town, getting things for other people. I am so conscious about the way that I spend my money because I want my time and energy to continually be reinvested. We used to call that velocity of a dollar, right? How fast a dollar moves around. And when we were in a cash society, that money moved around a lot quicker, especially to small businesses and individuals. That is why everybody felt a lot richer. It was harder to get scammed every which way until our economy was reduced to a monopoly in every industry, where you have to pay off every level of the mafia at every turn for you to just seemingly live a day-to-day existence. The patterns are now so controlled from such a high level because technology has really provided the infrastructure needed to control on a microscopic level the decision tree available to individuals. If you control the decision tree, you control the outcomes. And that is being revealed on a level in society that maybe happens on the same cycle. Maybe this is the Strauss-Howe generational theory cycle that Many of us have come to know very well, hard times make hard men make good times make soft men make hard times. Maybe this is just a continual cycle. But maybe the reason that it feels so different this time around is because it coincides with a much larger cycle that is happening in an astrological space-time that we have been maybe taught to forget through all of the manipulation of our time and energy being focused on things like P. Diddy and Justin Bieber and Usher and the Beatles and cinema and movies, right? And only after we've given society some time to sift through this new access that we have with this internet age do we have the time to really understand the reality that we've been living in the entire time and how our eyes have been lying to us this entire time. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, we didn't even get to the politics, which I wanted to end on. And again, I'm so thankful. I am so thankful to be sitting here today having a discussion where I can say, go out to Ian Carroll and watch all of the interviews and coverage that Ian Carroll got. My favorite being from Jimmy Dore and Kurt Metzger. Kurt Metzger is somebody I want to sit down with and have a beer with, even though neither of us drink. I just want to be friends with him. And I know he has probably so few people that say that to him, and I just want to listen to him talk. Because the information that he has, that brain of his is so precious. His life experience and his lens that he sees the world through is so dialed in on a level that is so unique that there's perhaps maybe a new white whale for me. Obviously, Matthias DiStefano, closed-minded Joe Rogan, I think is going to be an easy get. I'd love to talk to Jimmy, but Kurt, you, my friend, are someone I would love to spend some time with. So getting back to the Trump shooter, this is Ian Carroll's immediate coverage. Cancel Clothing Co. on Instagram. He is so heavily shadow banned in a lot of places. But he did the immediate... I didn't even know that there was a second attempted assassination of former president of the United States, Donald Trump, current candidate for president of the United States, current grand jury, currently on trial for I don't know how many former crimes alleged, two-time impeachment beater. There's just how many times has he been Emmy, award winner, nominated for his television? How many billion-dollar businesses has the guy built? He's been a second assassination attempt that just flies right under the radar. Never mind the investigation into the crazy person that showed up with an AR-15 to his golf club, which he was able to flee the scene from and was apprehended by law enforcement and rather quickly, which I guess is good. It should be alarming that even after the first attempt, which was no more than, month and a half ago, that the Secret Service isn't on their game enough to have controlled the situation, especially considering that this individual was known to the journalistic community. If you consider, I think it was Fox News, if it wasn't, I think Fox News did a deep dive on him, if it wasn't 2020 or one of those shows, because this was a guy who, at the time of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, he went to Ukraine on the front lines and was trying to recruit individuals, including women, Afghans, people from all over the world, to take up the Ukrainian fight, even though this was somebody who voted for Trump, I believe, in 2016. So he is politically lost. And this is what I believe to be one of the MK Ultra crazies. MK Ultra is what I really wanted to talk to you guys about. as we take a look at this case of a second shooter, I have no idea what's going on. I think we're still all going to learn a lot, just as we did in the time we gave the Diddy case to breathe and really think about it and see what happened. This case is also going to reveal itself to be of similar insights days in the future. But at the present moment, on September 19th, 2024, even in my cursory glance of Ian Carroll's investigation, it would appear that this person is a result of another MK Ultra program. When the news media conglomerate working together since the Smith Modernization Act of 2012 in concert, repeating the same narratives over and over of propaganda and misinformation, that ultimately plays out in people that believe these fake narratives to be true. When you continually say Donald Trump is the threat to democracy, there are people that believe that to be true, and they have taken it upon themselves to do whatever they can and do whatever necessary to ensure that democracy isn't robbed from us because they believe democracy is here with us now. Now, MK Ultra is a mind control program, a military grade psychological tactic that was employed in the 50s and 60s and believed to be retired, that the Charles Manson murders were a result of. There were also several Johns who were dosed with LSD and heroin in brothels that were known to intelligence agencies without their knowledge, so that they could be studied, the effects of these drugs. And a lot of this led to psychological breaks in individuals, seemingly without their knowledge because they were non-consenting to have these tests done on them. Now, full-time propaganda being broadcast on news channels for a decade is a similar experiment. Certainly when it's so encapsulating, and certainly when it's so encapsulating as it is controlled on high, not only magazines, but news broadcasts and newspapers and music and television and movies. When culture is controlled on high from that level, how can that be looked at as anything other than a full-grade military psychological operation? And as things like the Twitter files are revealed to us to be not figments of our worst nightmare, but actually infrastructure that exists in real life to silence individual voters on an individual basis without their knowledge. It really reveals the game that is afoot. I am thankful to be broadcasting this broadcast before Tim Dillon because I have no idea what Tim's going to cover this week. My guess is, again, we will have covered some of the same things. Maybe there were some things that I missed. Maybe some things that Tim didn't want to go full bore on, but that's really where we're at, which is crazy. I just had to come in and get back into this and start breaking some of this down for you guys because, as I see it, these things are going to increase in velocity. We are going to be entering a very volatile cultural, political, and economic moment, and that's going to resonate on an individual basis, especially economically, for all of you. The best part about that is it is the best time to be alive because we can all see it. We can all see it for what it is now, and they're not going to have as much success as my friend Dr. Robert Epstein documented in stealing the elections and the opinions of our society as they had in the past if we are able to disseminate the information that is currently reaching your earwaves right now because of this broadcast. Who knows what time and space you're going to hear this in, but right now, the United States of America, September 19th, 2024, I am here to tell you it is the best time to be alive. I hope that this broadcast comes out. I hope that Riverside's a decent app. I'm going to be continually working with the new infrastructure to produce this podcast. Salem is shaping up to hopefully be a great environment to reach a lot more of the people this coming October. So hopefully we'll have a lot more conversations, and then eventually someone's going to come on this podcast, maybe you, Kurt Metzger, and we're just going to have a discussion on the way other people see the world, and that's it. So until next time, my friends, take back your consciousness. I love you. I'm out.